My hair is giving 1980s today, but that is the hand we have been dealt. Before I begin the video properly, I want to give an apology, a proper YouTube apology to all the people who kindly mentioned me in the description of their YouTube videos. I just discovered this was a thing, that you mentioned people. I found a little tab on my YouTube thing and I saw, like, for the past couple of years that people have very kindly once in a while mentioned my name there. I don't know why I don't get notifications for that. Like, YouTube notifies me of all sorts of ridiculous things. I probably need to fiddle around in the settings. But fiddling aside, anyway, thank you very much for the mentions. I will try to be a better YouTuber from now on. So in my last video, I did a kind of like reviewing of an old TBR that I did. And it was interesting for me because it was interesting for me less to see the goals that I had set for the books that I wanted to read at that time, and more to think about, oh, those were the books that were in my brain. Like, they were like what I was daydreaming about. And then I was thinking, like, so what am I daydreaming about now? And what are the kind of classics that I'm, like most like keen to get to, although it's not so much about getting to them, it's just like what's floating around in my brain, really. So like, this is, less a TBR and more like a daydream list. And by that I mean, like all daydreams, it's going to be full of hopes and regrets and wistfulness and determination, like jumbled together. To which you might say, how can you feel regret for a book that you haven't read yet? And you'll see. That's all I'm going to say. Just stick around and you'll see exactly what I mean. So from the list in the last video, the ones that, like, having watched that list, I thought, those are still ones that are floating around in my brain, or are now floating around in my brain, like having rekindled that spark that was there before. It's Nostromo by Joseph Conrad, because unlike the other half-read books from that list, that one not only is half-read, but I still feel like I'm kind of in that world. When I remember it, it still feels very vivid for me, and I'm really keen to get back to it. And also, like, I know that once I go back to the UK, it's there, it's like, it's on the shelf, it's waiting for me. I can just dive right back into it, whereas a lot of the other half-read books I no longer have because they've been returned to libraries and so on. Then also I got some kind words of encouragement and some playful, benevolent chastisement regarding my lack of reading when it comes to the female Western canon. So like, of those books that I was talking about, like less Pride and Prejudice, but I was thinking Jane Eyre, Northanger Abbey, and Wuthering Heights are ones that I really want to get to kind of soon. Like, of those three, I think Wuthering Heights is the one that's like at the top of the list. So that is something as well I'm quite excited to get to. And also from that list was, well, not from that list, but I mentioned Alice Munro as a writer that I want to get to at some point in that last video. So even though she wasn't technically on the list, she is still like one that I really want to read, especially having lived in Canada now. She's a very famous Canadian author, and so I'd like to get to her books. As for new things, first of all, I've been thinking I really want to read some more Southeast Asian literature. I've been looking around at different books, but nothing is really stuck in my head or like captured my imagination yet, apart from this one called Noli me Tangere by José Rizal. Noli me Tangere is what Jesus said when he came back from the dead, and it means don't touch me. I think it was Mary Magdalene who approaches him after he's come back from the dead, and he's like, nah. And it's funny because like like afterwards there's the guy Thomas, right? And then Jesus is just like, put your hand in my wound. And it's like, it's totally mixed messages. I'm sure it makes sense if you read the Bible properly and not just like for fun bits like I do. Anyway, this book is a Filipino classic, and it kind of sparked a revolution, the Filipino revolution against the Spanish, and that's basically all I know about it. And it's a novel, right? It's not like a political manifesto, although I think it like served the role, it took the role of a political manifesto because it kind of united the Filipino people and, like, was, from what I understand, instrumental in their uprising. So that's just amazing, right? Like, there's not so many books, I guess the Bible is one of them, right, that like have such a huge effect on human culture and history in that really kind of direct way. Actually, I was bouncing on my toes in a weird way, so I'm just gonna sit on the floor properly because that was starting to hurt, and adjust the camera angle accordingly. Next is Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. This is about like in Russia in, I think, the mid 1800s, the nihilistic ideals of the younger generation clashing with the ideals of their parents' generation. And I read, again, I think like a half or a third of this book, and I was enjoying it a lot. But this is a weird one for me. I was reading it on my laptop from Japan, which I'd used for many years. And then in the middle of the book, I knocked a glass of water over the computer and destroyed it. And so, you know, it wouldn't be difficult. You know, it's free. I downloaded it free from the Gutenberg project, so it wouldn't be difficult to download it again. But like, I never got back into it after that moment. And in a way, it feels like kind of like breaking, when I broke the computer, I broke off with that like kind of period of my life, and then I got a new computer and I started a new period of my life, and it just felt wrong to go back to the book. It kind of felt like, yeah, the book got broke halfway through. So it just felt right to not go back to it, weirdly. But I do want to go back to it because it's a good book and it's a classic, right? And I'd like to read more by Turgenev, but I want to finish this one first at some point. I just have to get over that mental block that sees it as a symbol connected to like my past life and my future life and all that stuff. So something's going on there, but like I would like to read that one again at some point. The next one is Father and Son. So we're moving from the plural to the singular in the title here, by Edmund Gosse, who is a writer who I think is, more than his books, he's famous for having once written that Ulysses by James Joyce is like a cesspit of filth and all these kind of like quite descriptive words, which make him look pretty silly today. The book is, as you might expect, about a kind of clash of generations and ideals. In this case, it's autobiographical. He is the son, and he's writing about his father. His father was a zoologist, I think self-taught, but also very religious and very strict, and he had a strict religious upbringing. And so I think because of that, Edmund Gosse himself is interested in zoology and biology. The thing that divides them is the theory of evolution, which is what makes this book sound super interesting for me, as well as the fact that like it's a memoir from that time. That sounds really interesting. But yeah, the father, you know, rejects these newfangled ideas about evolution from Darwin, and the son embraces them, and so then has to start like rejecting his father's worldview. And that just sounds like, I don't know, that sounds perfect for me. I want to read that book so badly. The reason why this one is laced with regret for me is because when I lived in Dublin, I used to go to this place called Hodges Figgis. It's a historical bookshop that got bought by Waterstones, unfortunately. But it like they had one copy of this book, and it had maybe that's where I discovered it. I'm not even sure. I think that's probably where I found it for the first time. Yes, because it's Gosse, G-O, and I was probably looking for Gogol, right? And he would have been near there, and I found it. And it had a beautiful cover, and I really liked the cover, and there was just a one copy of it. And online, when I looked to buy it, then they didn't have that cover. But the cover was slightly bent, so I didn't buy it, and I thought, you know, I'm living in Dublin now, at some point they're going to restock, right? So every time I went to that shop, I always went and I always looked at the Edmund Gosse book, and it was always there, just that one copy, and nobody ever bought it. I was waiting for someone to buy it so they would restock it, or just that they would get in more editions or something, but it just sat there, sad and lonely, waiting for me to buy it. But I didn't, and I never did it, and I don't live in Ireland anymore, and who knows if the book is still there. But I feel now that it was not only the novel, but it was that book, that physical book, on the shelf in Hodges Figgis that I really wanted and still want to read. And that's the one that's just been haunting me ever since then. The book I would not buy because of the little crease in the paperback cover. So yeah, if I'd known that it would have caused me such mental distress down the years, obviously I would have just got it. At the time, it didn't seem worth it. But yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll go back to Ireland one of these days, or maybe I'll just get over that again, kind of mental stumbling block and find an edition of it online. But I think a cover makes a difference, and that cover was beautiful. So. Yeah, the Ramayana by Valmiki. This is one of the two major epic poems from India. It's about a prince who's called Rama, and he is the incarnation, one of the incarnations of the god Vishnu, or avatar. It's called an avatar, right? When the gods are born as humans on earth. I think, right? I don't quote me on this. And yet he has to rescue his wife, Sita, who got kidnapped. And at some point there's like an army of monkeys, and I think they're on Rama's side. I've never read any epic poetry outside of the Western tradition, I think. Yeah, right? Yeah. So I really want to get on that, you know, and like this is one that is really in my imagination at the moment because it just keeps cropping up around me. Like I traveled to Cambodia and I saw like loads of Hindu stuff everywhere, and that was a surprise to me. I was like, what? I didn't know there's all this, you know, like Ganesh and all these kind of very, all these gods that I associated with India, right? I didn't realize how far Hinduism had spread in the ancient world. And the Ramayana seems to especially have been a really influential text on the ancient Khmer civilization, because like all their temples and stuff have depictions of it. So that is just, again, like fascinating for me, how a work of literature shapes and like influences and gets absorbed into the culture of a whole people, right? Here also in Kuala Lumpur, I recently went to a place called the Ramayana cave, and it's just this beautiful cave complex with all these depictions of the Ramayana, and I didn't read any of the little notes because I don't want to have any spoilers. So I just had a, you know, kind of impression of it, like from the figures and stuff like that. But I want to stay spoiler free so I can really enjoy that poem when I get to it. But actually, the first thing that got me interested in the Ramayana is a mobile phone game called Fate Grand Order, where you play as like you gather a team of mythical characters, sort of like Pokemon. And yeah, it's kind of like, it's a mobile phone game. It's a little bit toxic, but I really enjoy it. And it's a visual novel as well, which means that you have to do loads and loads and loads of reading. So a lot of my reading time has been on that game instead of reading books, unfortunately. But yeah, that at the same time, that game has, you know, a version of the character of Rama, so I could understand a little bit about the story through that and get interested in it. And another character who appears in it is Astolfo from the French kind of cycle of stories around Charlemagne and these knights and stuff, which I don't know anything about, but thanks to the game, again, I want to learn. And Astolfo is one of the characters that joined my team, and she's trans and she's super cool. After doing some very serious Wikipedia research, I found out that the work that Astolfo is most prominent in is called Orlando Furioso, by the author is called Ludovico Ariosto. This is a Renaissance epic poem. Yeah, another epic poem. These last three are all epic poems. I'm just like in an epic poem mood, I guess. Apparently this was a hugely influential poem, like on people like Shakespeare, Lope de Vega, and modern times, Italo Calvino, Virginia Woolf, and like the list goes on, right? So I'd never heard of it before, but it sounds nuts. The main characters are Roland or Orlando, who I thought was like kind of from a French mythological tradition, and then Charlemagne, who I thought was like a historical figure, but they're in the same thing together. So maybe they're both mythological and both historical, like, you know, those things kind of mix sometimes. But yeah, who knows? Like Astolfo is like a side character in this. There's apparently loads of subplots and main plots all like kind of mixed up together. But in Astolfo's plot, he goes to the moon, and based on fate, I kind of guess that like there's something to do with catching a giant in a net involved, and maybe a rabbit, but I'm not sure, right? But like when I heard that Astolfo goes to the moon, I thought, is this a sci-fi? Is this like a medieval epic poem sci-fi? Like, what is this? What is this piece of literature? I'm also curious if the fact that the people in the game decided to depict Astolfo as a trans woman has any basis in the actual the work, you know what I mean? Like, because they usually draw from the literature itself, or for how they depict the characters. So I'm kind of curious if that was just some random Japanese quirk, or if there is something there in the original story. And finally, another one that I've already started a long time ago, the Thebaid, or the Thebaid, I don't know how to say it, by Statius, I think his name is. It's a Roman poem doing a Greek mythology retelling, like a lot of them tend to do, and it's about the Theban war, not civil war actually, but it's two brothers, right? The two sons of Oedipus. One of them goes and gets a foreign army, and he comes back and invades his own city of Thebes. This is also like kind of setting the scene for Antigone, for those who know that. I started reading this in Vancouver. I took it out from the library. Then I left, I went to the UK. Obviously I returned it to the library. I then asked my parents to give it to me for my birthday, and they did, and I was very happy, and I continued reading it. But then again, I'm a very slow reader. I left it to come to Asia. Like, it's a combination of I'm a slow reader and I move around, and so I don't carry heavy books with me, and also I use the library, right? But anyways, so I'm still in it. I think I might have to start from the beginning again when I get back to it. But like, again, like Nostromo, I still feel I'm in that world. It is a dark, gritty, very violent, kind of frenzied almost poem. It's not like any other epic poem I've read. And just like Nostromo, I know that it's there waiting for me in my parents' house when I go to visit in London. So that is very exciting. That's it. That's my list of classics that I'm daydreaming about. What are yours? What classics are you looking forward to reading, either in the short term or the long term, or even if you're not looking forward to reading them, if they're just like floating around in your subconscious, seeping into your conscious, subtly influencing your daily life? I want to hear about that. Let's chat about it down in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.